This is the TRU Leader Podcast. Today, our special guest is Leslie Galloway. Leslie is an executive coach, and we unpack everything from limiting beliefs to knowing your unique leadership style. Don't miss it.
Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett.
We are life and business besties, leadership coaches and mentors, and polarity intelligence experts. We're the authors of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and co-founders of Missing Logic.
We are here to help high-achieving leaders break through leadership norms that cause them suffering at work and home. If you're looking to elevate your leadership, increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and impact, and manage your health and well-being, spend quality time with those you love, and live your best life, then you are in the right place.
Our goal in this podcast is to equip you with new ways of thinking and practical and tactical strategies for succeeding at work and thriving in life. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of personal and professional development so you can reach your full leadership potential, create a life you love, and be what we are calling a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable or true leader.
If you are ready to learn and laugh a little, let's get started.
Everybody, here we are. Another incredible podcast episode. Great interview. Is that it?
Yeah. That's pretty much it. You know, sometimes it's hard to cut them off.
I know, but it was so much fun.
It was great.
We don't ever want to cut anybody off. That's our challenge. Right? They go on.
We get on a roll.
We do. Well, we have very interesting people on our podcast. We have a lot in common with them. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. And that was the case today with Leslie.
Yes. Leslie is a fellow leadership coach, comes from a different background, but we were able to talk about really the things that we've been learning the most about ourselves and about working with leaders, and got some pearls of wisdom in this one to share too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it was just a great, lively conversation.
And a little bit about Tracy and I, so make sure you listen to the end.
Oh, you're going to hear all about us and the new book that's coming out.
Yes, we declared it on this podcast.
Yeah. Now, we're not saying when. Let me be clear about that.
Oh, but let me tell you about Leslie Galloway, who we interviewed today. She is the founder of Interleap Partners, a coaching firm based in Atlanta, Georgia, that serves elite business leaders who want to up-level their leadership without sacrificing the rest of their life. Sounds sort of familiar.
Yeah.
Her expertise for coaching and development is based on a lifetime of study in behavioral psychology, leading teams in vice president roles, and coaching clients for the last 10 years on organizational design and leadership. Her reputation and career have set her apart as a go-to coach and developing executives and executive teams. Leslie is a sought-after speaker and facilitator with organizations looking to inspire and challenge their people into a more blended, fulfilling, and successful life. Thousands of leaders have been transformed by Leslie's work, and we hope you will by our conversation. So without further ado, here is Leslie. Well, welcome, Leslie, to the TRU Leader Podcast. We're thrilled that you're here joining us today.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we are too.
We are too.
Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, and we want to thank you for your passion for serving elite business leaders and helping them up-level their game and their life. And tell our listeners a little bit about your journey from a corporate leader to a coach.
Yeah, so I started out in the real corporate world, and then I scaled down a bit to a role as vice president of a branding firm, which was a smaller company, but still corporate in many ways that, you know, we all kind of feel, we feel what that's like. And then I served in that role for about 13 years. And then it was interesting. I had hired a business coach during that period, and was working through a lot of my own leadership styles, my strengths, my blind spots. And I went through a series of really big milestones. I got pregnant, I had a baby, and then I came back to work and I looked at my bio and I remember just thinking, there are all these great check marks on here. But I don't see myself. I don't see my passions. I don't see the things that really light me up and that I was really uniquely gifted to do. And it sent me into just a real questioning phase of what I really wanted to do with the rest of my career. And it was at that point that my business coach invited me to join him, and we partnered in a coaching firm together for about 5 years. And then in 2020, I launched Inner Leap, which is my coaching firm today.
Wow. Well, I just love that you, well, I love it when coaches get coaching.
Right? Yes. I know. We have to drink our own Kool-Aid, right?
It's so true, right? It is so true. And it's just it's a unique relationship, I think, right? And so I appreciate that. And, and when we don't see ourselves in the work that we're doing, that's certainly what a great reason to step out and to, find something that lights you up further, right, than where you were at.
Yeah. And,
Makes such sense.
I cannot imagine not having taken that step. And I think it's one of the things that I work with so many leaders on. It may not be that they have to completely shift careers and for a lot of them, they don't, but they are looking for a more authentic shift where they're taking a leap that they've been afraid to do on their own before. And, I don't talk about this a lot, but it's the reason why Inner Leap is named Inner Leap, is because it's the relationship between the coach and the client, and then the leap that happens because of that relationship. And I think that the goal for all of us is to operate in our highest and best. And I love helping leaders get there.
Yeah, we do too.
So do we.
We do too.
Yeah, we have a shared passion, ladies.
We do.
Yes,
we do. Well, it's such an important journey, right? And we oftentimes as individuals, we're our biggest roadblock. It's not what's happening around us, it's what's happening in us. And so,
100%.
It's just, so much work to do there. So much.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that we really identified with in your approach too, right, is helping leaders to see the possibilities and rather than our limitations, right? There's all kinds of opportunity in front of us if we are open to that. And so share a little bit with what you've learned about the consequences of limiting beliefs.
Yeah, I feel like you just spoke to this, because when you said that we are our own roadblocks, it was interesting, even in a coaching group earlier today, as we were talking about, we walk leaders through this particular group is called Emerge. And some of the things that we look at is we look at leadership styles, we look at patterns, usually unhelpful patterns that get created with our leadership styles when we've got blind spots. And what's interesting is, where we take leaders in this conversation is to a place of feeling like they can take the power back. And I think what's so interesting about this as it relates to limiting beliefs is that I don't even think that leaders or that we even see that we've given up power, right? But it's in our limiting beliefs that we think this is happening to me versus this is happening for me, or how do I want to show up in the situation? And it takes a little while, I think, as you help leaders understand what their patterns are, for them to see the way that they think about things is literally oftentimes the number one thing standing in their way, right? It's not other people, it's not circumstances, it's the way that they view the circumstances. In oftentimes a really disempowering way, but it's subtle, it's very nuanced, right? And it has to do with the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, about the people around us, about our circumstances. And one of the things that, I mean, this is just a really incredible tool that your audience could use today. I mean, I use this, I've started using this on the regular. When I feel stuck or something's frustrating, I will just take out a journal and say, what am I believing about this thing? Right? And when you simply write down, what am I believing? It could be that this is all on me. I have to have all the right answers. There's no way out of the situation. There are no possibilities. I mean, or that I can't make impact in this situation, but when you see that on paper and you see, wow, of course, if that's what I believe about a scenario, then of course that's informing my behavior toward it. Right. And I think that if we're able to look at our beliefs, not our behaviors, then we can really start to create some shifts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because the beliefs drive our behaviors oftentimes, right?
They do. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's the lens that you're looking through. So it shapes everything you see, right? And therefore then how you respond or how you act in all these different circumstances, because it's just that it's the lens you're looking through.
Yeah.
And you mentioned,
and I think that we want to change the behavior, right? Like that's where we all go first. But that's of course the tangible manifestation, but it's the tangible manifestation of the belief. There's a belief driving it, right? And until we get to that place, then it's really difficult for us to change the behavior that we're wanting to shift so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I've learned is I think this is the hardest part of the journey, because those beliefs are so ingrained in us. So we're so indoctrinated with the past and the experiences and different things that have shaped us, and so much of it is unconscious that you're not even aware of it, right? And yet every result in your life is a result of that belief, right? So it's the starting point of so much in our lives, and so much that we just don't even know about, right? So it just helps really uncover that.
Yeah, and I think it can feel daunting, even as you describe it. I think, my goodness, these are old narratives and tapes. And when we start to peel back the layers one by one, and oftentimes it's that one layer that is the domino that hits, all the other ones.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, even as we talked about this morning, we were going through the power plan, which is something that we work out at the end of this course. And the leaders were saying, it's the inside work. And I think this is what we're talking about, the beliefs. It's the inside work that once you go deep, which isn't always comfortable or, welcome, or we kind of go, kicking and screaming. And yet that's where, when you can work from the inside out, you get the most transformational change. Right. And
so true.
I think that's part of the leap. It's just the willingness to say yes, and to say, you know what, the pain of staying stuck is worse than the pain of changing something, right? And if we're just willing to kind of close our eyes and jump and do a bit of a trust fall,
Yeah.
then a lot can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the pain is shorter lived when you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like ripping off the Band-Aid,
Right.
Like you have that initial pain and then it's over, right? Like once
Mm-hmm.
you get beyond the belief or beyond the story or whatever it is. But if you stay in it, the pain is never ending because you're never getting to where you really want to go.
Goes
That's right.
on and on and
Yeah.
on.
So it's
or it
really
keeps coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that you said you have to trust, right? You just have to trust that the right things will happen if I just really take that honest look inside and the intention to grow and to learn from whatever I'm experiencing and challenging my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
your word honest, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really hard for us to do sometimes.
Yeah.
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 And I do think that it's part of the power of coaching is having someone who doesn't have, there's not a charge with, right? It's not a boss, it's not a spouse, it's not a partner, it's not a peer, where you're trusting someone to walk through something with you and to point things out to you that coming from someone else might really sting. And yet, that this person is here to help guide you through those things. It just made me think about what you said earlier about the coaching and how it's just a unique relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is. Well, one of the skills that you've shared with us that leaders can really adapt and grow and evolve with as well is just simply being curious. And can you please share why you think being more curious can transform how you lead and your leadership style?
Yeah. And I love that we talk about this as a tool, because it
Mhm.
is truly a tool and it's a skill. And it's something that I really never considered until I'd say several years ago when we started really diving into this topic. And I'm blown away all the time maybe as we've joked about the polarity piece and how important that is, it's like I see curiosity everywhere. And it's such a posture, right? I think that there's a part of our brains that is naturally goes into judgment mode, right? Like we judge ourselves, we judge other people, we judge circumstances, and it shuts down a side of our brain that is empathetic and creative and understanding and innovative and trying to find, back to our comment a little while ago about possibility. Curiosity is all about possibility. Judgment is limitation, right? And yet I don't even think that we notice how often we go into judgment mode. And if the flip side of that is curiosity, it's curiosity brings down walls in our relationship, in our relationships, in our work. Even if I don't know if you all have days like this. I would imagine you do because you're human, where you come in and you think, none of this looks fun to me. I just have a pile of stuff that needs to be done, right? I feel frustrated. I feel stuck. Even as you think about that, you think you're in judgment mode, right? Like you're shut down. You're sort of, your belief is that this isn't fun, helpful, creative, forward moving. But when you shift your brain into a curious perspective, it's like, okay, zoom out, which is also a tool, and just to think, okay, what's really interesting about this? What is fun about my work? What could I be doing? I was just actually reading it was an HBR article about asking smarter questions. And of course, coaching is all about asking great questions. And that requires curiosity. And that's actually how we learn things. And I think as leaders, oftentimes there is such a a pressure to have all the answers, to know everything, to really to judge, right? Like we have an agenda. Um, and yet the opposite, and I love that this is becoming such a major topic, is, the CEO of NVIDIA is quoted in here as how he's had to evolve his leadership style into actually asking, almost having no answers to things, because he's
Mm-hmm.
always asking questions of his team and the people around him. But I think there's the question piece of curiosity, but there's, like I said, just the posture of it. And I don't know about you all, but I think it's pretty universal. When you're around curious people, those are, like, I mean, genuinely curious people. Not, I'm trying to ask you a question to lead you to something that I want
Yeah.
you to do. Right. But I really
Mm-hmm.
want to know, like, what's your business like? And how do you all think through things? And those are some of the most, I think, attractive people to be around. And I think if we were to use this tool more just in general in our families, I mean, I look at the state of our kind of world right now. What if we were more curious? It would be really,
Mm-hmm.
really life changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we want to pause here for just a minute because we're so excited to tell you registration is open for our new free webinar. It's called Stress to Success, the formula for leaders to excel professionally and personally. If you're a leader, small business owner, or entrepreneur, and you're experiencing any of these, you struggle to reconnect or reignite the passion you once felt for your career, your personal life doesn't get the attention it deserves because of the demands of your work life, or the conflict between your professional life and personal life is growing more intense each day, and or maybe you're leaving work almost every day less and less satisfied with your performance, then you might be making one or more of these mistakes: sacrificing your personal life to focus on work challenges or projects every week, staying late at work most days, or making yourself accessible 24/7, answering texts and emails and phone calls. Maybe saying yes to requests to take on more responsibility or projects when you'd prefer to say no. Or spending increasing amounts of time doing things that do not bring you joy or drain your energy. Or maybe telling yourself every week, when things slow down at work, it will get better and I'll have a life. Truth is, if you keep making these mistakes, you'll keep getting the same results. When what you really want is to excel in your professional life and career, meaning you want to be highly productive, well regarded, and respected by your team and peers, and have a positive impact and influence in your work. And at the same time, you want to be living a fulfilling, thriving life, meaning you want to spend quality time with family and friends and maintain your health and well being, experience joy, and prioritize your personal life. But you don't know where to start or how to get off the hamster wheel you're on. The only way to excel professionally while thriving personally is to be a thriving, resilient, unstoppable, or true leader. In the webinar, Stress to Success, the formula for leaders to excel professionally and personally, we reveal the formula that we've used and leaders around the country we've mentored have used to excel in their professional lives and career while living a fulfilling, thriving personal life. Click the link in the show notes to learn more and register today so you can start living your best life as a true leader.
Well, one of the things that we do is we teach people dialogue skills to really bring out the different tensions or, some of those conflicts that we experience. And one of the key concepts is inquiry, and just ask with genuine curiosity,
So
and just
good.
what comes back and what you learn is amazing, because we can make all kinds of assumptions and do the judging, but it really is a skill set. And I think what you're bringing forward is just to really develop that curiosity muscle. So it's almost natural that I'm in that state of not having to know, but just diving into inquiry, with your curiosity.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up that the research tells us that kids up until age 5 are really about 99% of them think out of the box. But over time, we tell people how to think, right? And we
Yep.
say, hey,
Yep.
memorize this and then regurgitate it back to me. And that's how you think. And versus really, the Socratic method, like getting people actually to think for themselves. And because the research, and maybe you all have seen this, that by age 25, 99% of people don't think out of the box because they've just lost practice. And that goes back to your point about it's a skill. I mean, we have to use it and work the muscle and be intentional. And I think that would be such a load off of us if we did it. I think we would create so many better ideas, and we would enjoy work and relationships so much more if we were able to do that. So I love that that's part of your work. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's respecting that in others too. So even if you're not a curious person, it's being able to acknowledge the benefit of it, in others, and where that can lead. So I love that.
So true.
One of the things that, we were introduced to when we became entrepreneurs was the entrepreneur operating system, or the EOS system. We know you have some experience with that as well. And it really is the management of the polarity of the vision and the operationalization of that vision, right? And it's really the both and lots of systems and ways and processes to make that a reality. And we just were curious about like what you've learned about leadership styles and the impact in that, those that operate from that system, or maybe even another kind of operating system, but just what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the most powerful concepts that I love that you all have done that work. I think that we walk into work and we sort of assume that everyone is approaching work in the same way, right? That this lens that we talked about before, like that we're all walking into work with the same pair of glasses. And I think about the way, things, the way you think about things. And, what we know is that couldn't be further from the truth. And yet I still think so many leaders operate from that assumption without just really thinking about it. And so, and it's been interesting too, just along my journey, as I think about the way that my brain works. And I would call my brain, I would probably call it neurodivergent. It's, it doesn't come at things from a linear perspective. And, even as I think back, I mean, even as I'm just referencing our conversation about curiosity and judgment, I think as leaders, oftentimes we judge ourselves for not having, I don't come at this the way my team member comes at it, right? Or we judge the other person. They don't come at it the way I'm coming at it. And here we see the lack of curiosity again, right? Which is what keeps us stuck. But the power of understanding, what is my leadership style? So let me back up, because I think this is one of the most interesting stats that I've heard around this, that Accenture did a focus group and they looked at 100 CEOs and they said, what is the most important quality to making a business successful? And they pulled about 14 characteristics, and none of which, of course, everyone has, but it all boiled down to, this one meta ability, and that was self-awareness. And to me, this is what leadership is. It's such a foundational piece of leadership, which has to do with, okay, what is my style? How do I show up around people? What works really well about that? What doesn't work so well? Where do I need to shift according to Michelle and Tracy's style? Right? If I come in with a hammer in every single situation because that's my tool or my style, And yet I need that's not, that's not the tool needed because these folks operate differently in my world. Golly, the bottlenecks and the frustration and, the making things really personal, the conflicts that can come up as a result of that. We could mitigate so much of that if we just understood each other better. If we understood ourselves better first and then really made it a point to understand who our audience is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we think it's really important to first know thyself, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just really lean into your strengths, but also be aware that other people have different strengths and different gifts that you can also lean into that could really benefit you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, Michelle and I are walking polarity. So, we have a lot of practice at this. Some
Right?
days we do it.
Yes.
Some days we do it better than others. Just being honest.
That's great transparency. I love it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's
well,
true.
It's the only way you get anywhere, right? And so I think though too, what we have come to know, and if you disagree, please say so. But it's when you get into trouble is when you are holding on to your style or your perspective at the extreme of
Such a
the
good
other,
point.
right?
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
And
Yes.
when they are interdependent, when the styles are really interdependent and you need both, like with the EOS system, you need an integrator and you need a visionary, right?
That's right.
It can't be all about the vision and all about, right? And it can't be all about operations either.
That's right.
And when you have different styles and strengths, it can't be on the extreme. And when you get out to the extremes, right, where you're holding on, you got to really come a little bit towards the center. So each person, even if it's not your strength, it's about leaning in a little bit more. It's about tapping into whatever skills you have in that regard, right? And not that you have to live there all the time if that's not where your strengths are, but it's just about the both and the leaning in and supporting each other, right, in that. And I think sometimes too, what another thing we've learned is when things are busy or there's a lot, right, a lot of things happening that are a lot of can be just a lot of drivers, right?
Yeah.
It can pull you out to your extreme of the pull
Your
that you
preference
hold, right?
pull,
Your
yeah.
preference pull, right? And so you just always have to be aware of the triggers of what's happening, about what the team is going through, about what you're experiencing, like, personally and in the business. And so there's just all these things, just to your point, the self-awareness and the awareness of others becomes so important when you're trying to leverage these different styles and be present and respectful of them as well, right?
Yeah, and I love that you shared all of that. And I think it requires the curiosity, going back to that, the curiosity and the empathy to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, wait, hold on. Maybe Tracy, Michelle, maybe you're not or where am I creating tension? I mean, that takes a lot of vulnerability as a leader
Yeah.
to say,
Yep.
where am I creating a rub? Help me understand. And I think certain styles are much more empathetic than others, right? So some of us have to work harder at that. We might be really task oriented leaders and we can't see other people as well. And so it's tricky, but, think about the time that we waste and the energy and, when we aren't communicating about that. But I think this is the communication is what a lot of leaders, sounds like you all do this with people, which is so great because gosh, I'm amazed at how many unbelievable leaders come through our circles who have no idea how to have hard conversations. Like nobody,
Right.
we're not teaching this like we should. So I love that you all do that.
Yeah.
So much of it is just learning, right? It's learning about yourself and learning about other people. And, it's just really going on that journey, I think, to really understand and then appreciate. Well, of course. Of course, that's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, or someone else is feeling the way they're feeling, and so that you can make different choices as a result of that too.
Yeah.
I'm so curious if I can flip our question. I'm curious just one thing that's made that easier for you all as opposites.
Well, I think it's just recognizing, I'll speak for me and then
Yeah.
you can, but I think we know it's a polarity.
Yeah, for sure.
We know that it's not my way or her way, right?
Right.
That it's a both and we know what our preferences are. So I think sometimes you're not even aware that you're holding on to a preference pole, and when you have a preference like that, you can be blinded to the benefits of the opposite pole,
That's
right? Or
right.
I won't say opposite because it's not necessarily opposite, it appears to be opposite or contradictory. And because you have so much value, and polarities are values. So when you have so much value, right, for productivity and what that brings to the business, right, from an operations perspective, right, and you are so clear on the benefits of that, right, what you're more aware of is the downside of over focusing on relationships than you are aware that there are of the positive benefits. It's not that you don't know relationships are important, that there are benefits, but you're more heightened to the loss of what you value, which is the downside of focusing on relationships, right? Or too much focus on relationships. So
Yep.
that's just an example, right? And because we understand this dynamic and how it works, we know when we're holding our pole, I think, right? We're very aware when we need to lean in more, right? And kind of what the drivers of that are. But if you don't understand the dynamic relationship, that's when you get into trouble, because then you just keep pulling apart.
Stay frustrated all the time. I think the other thing, such a great question, thank you for asking it, Leslie, is it's really wrapping the whole polarity intelligence around the tension as well. And our relationship means a great deal to us. It comes first, and we value it so highly that you let's just learn about this, what is happening, and understanding the polarities that are at play here, and then having dialogue about it, being honest, like just having conversation. And true to the EOS, we have a same page meeting once a month. We just had one last Friday, and we really dug up some things like, this is how I'm feeling about this. This is how I'm feeling about this.
So
and
good.
You have to clear that foundation. You got to just keep bringing it up and keep things moving forward. So we really are committed to walking our talk around that. It's one of our core values. And
Sounds like it.
we said, oh my gosh, we're a living example of what we
We
set
are.
out to do.
We got another book in us just about the whole, this whole relationship is going to be a book. It's going to be a page burner.
I want to read it. I'd love to read it.
Yeah, but it is, and it is about the polarity intelligence piece, because we have a foundation of a healthy relationship.
That's right.
If we didn't have that, it would be even more challenging.
Oh, yes.
But we do have that. We know what it means. And I think for us, it's not just about like a healthy relationship, right? It's living these principles of relationship every day, right?
Yep.
And living the principles of communication, and knowing sometimes we're not really great at it. Some days we're better at it than others, right? But it's always the fundamental, and we recognize when we're not, and we just keep giving each other grace and continue to move forward, right? And we just keep, doing our own personal work and doing our collective work. And without that, you can't, I just don't know how you could be successful.
I don't either.
In that dyad relationship, right? That's such a critical relationship for no matter what size your organization is. It's a critical relationship, the visionary and the integrator.
Well, congratulations. It's so fun to hear really positive examples, because it isn't easy work, right? And yet, again, if you trust and you lean into it and you say, well, I mean, because the cost of not doing it, and this is something that we talk about a lot with, in our groups, it's just, and with, of course, just one-to-one, but it's like when you understand the cost of something, it's really important, because I think oftentimes it's sort of this, I think of it as this running debit, you can't see the the debits that are hitting your account, and so you tend to, overemphasize the cost of doing it or changing something. And yet, I mean, to your point, I look at, so many relationships, and the partnership just doesn't work, right? Because they don't go here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they don't know. I really think they don't have that level of that intelligence. I mean, I don't want to say they're not intelligent, but they don't have polarity intelligence.
Yeah.
And that's why so many partnerships fail. They don't know where they need to go with it. And so it just becomes, adversarial and contradictory, and they just can't find their way through it.
It's easier to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easier,
to leave.
Get back to the pain, right? It's easier for me than to have to do my own work, than to have to work. It's just like a marriage. It really is a marriage.
It is like a marriage, for sure.
Yeah, and you either, you just do the work you have to do to make it work, and most don't know what to do and can't seem to find a way through it that is positive and uplifting and, and growing and supporting them in those ways. It just becomes more painful, and they just exit.
Well, and I think what matters so much about it, if you hit the easy button and you leave, then, I mean, you're stuck, and you still need the polarity of the other one, right? Like you still can't function, right? So you're just back to square one, and because we've got to have the polarity.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's a real waste, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So,
well, or then you're in another relationship, and you're going to go through it again, or you're going to partner with somebody that's just like you.
That's it.
And you're thinking, this is what I was missing. I need somebody who's just like me. And then what happens is then you don't have that other part, and you fail over time because you're unipolar in your approach.
It's like
so you're doomed. You're doomed, right?
Doomed. You're right.
You're doomed. So you just got to become polarity intelligent. That's how it works. It's a universal law. It is.
That's a wrap.
It is. Yeah. It's a universal law. So, and you need all these other little wonderful things as well, right? You need to be curious, and you need to, I mean, it's a whole package, right?
It's a whole package.
So, yeah. And it's about being human and growing and having that kind of growth mindset and being in it. You got to be in it for the long haul, not for the short term gains,
I love your perspective on just the yes and, it's your perspective and the other ones, right?
Yep.
It's how do you, again, it's not binary, it's the possibility of how do they work together to create something great. And that is the sweet spot for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the magic sauce.
Yeah. It's an interdependent relationship that can't be denied.
Yeah.
It just can't be denied. You can try. but it's a universal law. I mean, it really is. It's just like gravity. It's always there. It's always going to work on you. They're everywhere. And if you don't understand them, they're just going to work on you, and you're going to feel a lot of tension.
You all are doing really, really important work out there. I love
it.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. Well, now it's time for our true questions.
Oh, watch out. Here they come.
So our true mystery questions. Oh, don't worry. These are fun. Okay. Well, the first one's really easy, I think. What's the best thing about living in Atlanta?
What's the best thing about living in Atlanta? So, there is so much to do in Atlanta. I will tell you the best thing. So even this morning, I was on a PR call, and we were talking about our market, and just, there are so many, okay, let's go back to our possibilities. So many possibilities, right? And so many different aspects to this city that you just never run out of anything or any adventure to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Atlanta. You're right. There's a lot to do there. It's a
Yeah.
big
A lot to
city.
do.
Yeah, my son lived there for a while. It was fun. It's fun to go there. All right, here you go. Here's the next one. Now, I this might be harder. I don't know. It's hard to know. Okay, who or what do you consult for your best fashion tips?
Oh my goodness. Y'all, I just gave you such a Southern word. So I have to say, that is actually really hard for me. I don't love to shop. I do like style.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself going to just a couple of designers I really like. I don't do a ton of influencers or social media. I got too many other things in my brain that I want to keep up with. And those are they just don't, they crowd my mind. So I'm not giving you all an answer. I'm giving you what I
That's
don't
okay.
do.
That's all right.
You know, every so often I'll have somebody come in my closet and I'll just say, listen, you are great at what you do. Take me through the process of how to weed out and what to add. And I will tell y'all, I had somebody really interesting do some branding work for me. And she really helped me color wise, shape wise. It turns out
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole science to it's not just your mom's old story about colors, right? And
Right.
there's a science to it. So I've used that too. It's made it
Yeah.
kind of efficient.
That's great.
Let's be curious about fashion.
Yeah, evidently we are.
I love it.
Well, you know,
I want to ask you all the same question. I mean, that's really where my brain goes.
I go to her. She tells me what to wear.
Literally.
Literally. On every podcast, I go, okay, tell me what I'm bringing this week. What am I supposed to wear? I think I think it's an interesting question. And I guess, I like Pinterest. I go to Pinterest.
I do too.
And I look for ideas on Pinterest occasionally.
And I think the other thing I've learned too is you have to feel good in what you have on.
Yeah.
And we've had some amazing podcast guests that is their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is it doesn't even matter what the latest style is. You have to feel good in it.
Yeah.
And Tracy and I do like kind of matching things up, opposite but the same. And we got our little signature wears for speaking and podcast things we do. Like we're kind of got the same thing on today, and it works for us.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
kind of
great.
our thing.
And I tend to think of fashion more, I tend to think about it more like I have a classic style
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
tend
you
to
do.
do the trendy things. And because the thing I was just sharing with you all that was so fascinating to me was all my life, and my friends growing up would joke about this, I was always wearing a V-neck. And look, I'm doing it today, basically. and this woman that I shared with you all, she said, we gravitate toward clothes because of the shape. So for me, I have more of a, my chin is more triangular. And so I don't like crew necks, but I never knew why. And I think, to your point of when you find stuff that feels good, but when there's a rhyme and a reason behind why it feels good, I might think that is a beautiful purple on you, but that wouldn't look good on me, right? I mean, I even think we could channel this back to our other, just the uniqueness of who you are and what looks good on you. And I'm more browns and dark purples and, than I am pink and that's really fun when you just know who you are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
it is.
it's just a way of expressing
Yeah.
yourself. Another
Yeah.
way of expressing yourself,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I think it's really, it's fun. It's fun to think about that. But thanks so much for today. Leslie, it's just been wonderful to have you as a guest. And it's just been really a really fun conversation. I've really enjoyed that. Is there anything you want to say before we close?
I really appreciated this too. I think that I learned a lot. And again, that is what we should go into these conversations, you know. I mean, I appreciate you having me as a guest, and I loved just hearing from you all and the way that you look at polarity. And it's given me a new language and the way that I can talk about this work in the world. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so
welcome.
You're so welcome. And I trust our listeners got a whole lot out of this conversation as well. And if you did, share it with others. We so appreciate you listening in, and please subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Or you can subscribe on our YouTube channel too if you like to watch the videos. We're all looking pretty stylish. Yes. And if like I said before, if you really enjoy this and got a lot out of it, then please do share it. It helps us. It helps Leslie spread the word around what she's doing in this world to make it better. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy.
Okay. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.